Good afternoon and welcome to the Big Show. The Big Show's back after a week of being on in the mornings or in the early afternoons. We're back and we're live, so hopefully we can get you back into the idea of jumping in here at 5:15, whatever, 10 after 5. Somewhere around that, we get out and we get to talk about all things Pittsburgh sports. This week we'll do two videos, and then I think next week probably two again, and then all that. After that, all of a sudden we start getting into training camp, and well, that will be very, very much full speed ahead. Now, I thought one of the things that was very, very interesting to me, and something that probably should be of interest to you, comes courtesy of one of our favorite topics. Not really, but it's become one of our favorite topics because it seems to be a topic quite often, is TJ Watt. Now, there's TJ Watt, there is Aaron Rodgers, there is Mike Tomlin. Those three things seem to be the things that we talk the most about for whatever reason. And, well, here we go. Again with TJ Watt. Adam Schefter, as you know, is a national reporter from ESPN. He's the guy that, breaks a lot of news on the Steelers, on the NFL, on everybody else. He's somebody who, has a voice that everybody listens to. And it's funny when it's the national guys, okay? When it's the national guys, as I've said many times, they all have a lot of pressure on them to break news, to break stories, to write about things that are, important, but also to make sure that they continually refresh and update and continue to push things that are out there. And I think that's why I always take some of these things with a grain of salt when I read some of the stories that I read from these guys. But here's one that I can tell you that is really kind of probably accurate. And if it is, boy, I think the Steelers are going to be in for a pretty long negotiation with TJ Watt. And I think one of the things about it is not necessarily about the money with TJ Watt, although that's important. The money obviously is important from that standpoint. But what's really the sticking point right now is that TJ Watt wants more years. They want more years than the teams want to give them. And if I'm the team, you got a problem from the standpoint of if it's about more years for a guy who's 31 years old, for a guy who basically is, gotten beaten up and worn down in just about every one of these seasons that we've seen. If that's the case, I'm sorry. You basically, if you're the Steelers, I don't know that you can give in to that demand. There are some people that think that the Steelers need to basically give in to TJ Watt and give him everything he wants. And it's like, I know he's a really good player. I know he's been a guy, when he's been in the lineup, they're better than when he hasn't been. But has he won enough? Really? Has he won enough to the point where you have to sit here and say, we have to really basically go out and make sure that we keep him at all costs? I just don't think so. I'm sorry. I just don't think so. I think it's one of those things where it says, well, it's going to be interesting in my mind. It's going to be very interesting in my mind to see how this ends up. And the reason I say that is because I think the Steelers are in a position where they feel like they're going to have to give in to him And I just don't think so. I just don't think so. I think that they have to really think about long and hard what they're willing to give up for him. And I just believe that when it comes to this whole thing with, TJ Watt, it comes to, in my mind, at least, the Steelers have to be very smart about how they handle him. And I'd even say maybe, just maybe, they have to think about trading him. Now, I've been saying they should trade him for a while. I've been saying that basically, to me, he's a really expensive player who's very productive early in the season. That is what I would tell you. It's so important. It's so important for the Steelers to make sure that they are actually in a place where they don't give in just because, they want him to be a one-helmet guy, because they want him to be here forever, because he's a Steeler for life, and all that other stuff. They can't give this guy 3 years or 4 years. You just can't. And if that's the sticking point, if that's something that's non-negotiable in his mind, I'm sorry, you have really legitimately have to think about trading him, seeing what you can get for him, seeing what the market is for him, and all that other stuff. Because if you don't and you give in, you're going to end up with a bad contract. Unless you can find a way to get him and his agent to agree to one of these deals that, the back 2 years of it, you can get out of pretty easily. But that's not going to be the case because he wants more guaranteed money than anybody else. What was the number that Myles Garrett got? Like $123 million or $124 million guaranteed or whatever it was? He's going to want a little bit more than that. That's really kind of how this game is played. $123.5 million is what Myles Garrett has guaranteed. That's too much money to try and, hide in a contract that's similar to Cam Heyward's, where they structured a deal where, we'll get you this second year or the third year on this deal. But if it turns out that you're not what you were, then what we'll do is be able to get out of it pretty easily. I think that's the case in my mind. And I think that's where we're at from that standpoint. That's just how it is. And I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And I think that's where we're at. And so I just feel like when we put all this together, you can't give TJ Watt more years. You can't. I don't even like giving him an extension, to be honest. I've said I would trade him. See what you can get for him. Maybe sign him to tell him, listen, we'll sign you to a 2-year deal, like a sign and trade type thing. See if someone out there is willing to do it, or whatever. But to me, I think that he is not a quarterback. And because he's not a quarterback, I don't know. I just don't know that his value holds up, especially when you consider the fact that he is in a situation where I feel like he's in a situation where he has each year kind of gotten beat up a little bit every year and has been a little less effective every single year. And that's where I tell you, every year when it comes down the stretch and they get to the playoffs, it seems like it's pretty easy to take him out of the equation. And I just don't think that's good for anybody. So to me, if the Steelers are going to hold the line on years, that's what they should do. I just don't know that you want to commit to him for 4 or 5 years. Really, when you've got, this defense, you're looking for this defense to be really good. really fast. And you're looking for it to have one more run is almost what you're hoping for out of this group with Cam Heyward and TJ Watt and company. I just feel like that's where you're at. It's just so important to note that you just have to really get there. And you got to get to a point where you absolutely need to think about life beyond TJ Watt. People say, well, Steeler for life and all this other stuff. That's great, but here's the thing. Guess what? Steeler for life, but I'm sorry. You moved on from Troy Polamalu. You moved on from, Ben Roethlisberger. You moved on from James Harrison. You moved on from all these guys that were great, great players, right? That all should have been Steelers for life. You actually moved on from Hines Ward. So that's really what it comes down to in my mind, is that this idea that you got to have all these one helmet guys. And I just don't think that's really, to me, what it is. And I think Mike Tomlin, I get it. He's trying to piece together a team that can win one more year for him and hopefully, win a playoff game and kind of get people off his back. But I just don't know that TJ Watt is somebody who is really, really in a place where he shouldn't have pressure on him. But I don't think he does have pressure on him. But I think the other thing about it is he has his guys, and his guys are these guys that, he falls in love with how good they are. With TJ, it's like, oh, he's a machine. He's this, he's that. And well, guess what? You need guys that are going to help you win playoff games. And if he's beat up every year at the end of the year, I just don't know that he can really help you that much. I just don't think so. I think you'd be better off taking the money that you would spend on him, spreading it out over 3 or 4 players. Maybe you're even able to draft. Trade him for a couple of draft choices, and then you can really load up if you want to go try and get in the top 5 next year, whatever. I think there's better ways you can use them. I know there are some people who don't believe that. I happen to believe that. I just happen to believe that really, if you look at it, it's really tough to justify, in my mind, giving TJ Watt a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal or whatever. He's 31 years old. He's not a young guy anymore. And so since he's not a young guy, think about it. By the way, the game's always on at Archie's. Archie's on Carson Street, home of 80 Cent Wings, Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's. Tell Archie I said hello. You get down there, try my sandwich, and enjoy a good meal at Archie's. By the way, if you're looking for what the going rate is for a cornerback, and it will become a discussion in a year or two, probably next year, right? Or, one more year. So probably next year when the Steelers start thinking about trying to sign Joey Porter Jr. to his second contract. Well, and I'm not saying Joey Porter Jr. is Sauce Gardner, but if Joey Porter has a really good year this year and, he's all pro or, whatever, Pro Bowl, all pro, has a really good year, steps, takes a real big stride forward. And this goes back to the Watt conversation. You sign a guy like Watt, you still got to probably have to find a way to sign a quarterback at some point, or maybe you've got a couple more years before you have to do that. But you've got some other guys that are coming up on contracts that you're going to have to sign. Okay. Well, Sauce Gardner, 4 years, $120.4 million per year, $60 million guaranteed. Average $30.1 million per year. That's the going price for a top cornerback. That is the top price. That is the price right now for a cornerback. And you can say, well, Paul, that's Sauce Gardner, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. But you know how the market goes. Yes, he's the highest paid right now. Wait about 5 minutes, and somebody else that's a corner will get their deal done, and it'll be a little bit more. And somebody else will be a little bit more. Somebody else will be a little bit more. If you remember, what was the summer? I think it was it Lamar Jackson? There was a summer there where one of those guys signed, maybe say like in June, the largest contract or whatever. And, by like the end of July, their contract was like the fourth or fifth largest for a quarterback. I forget who it was. But to me, I look at all of that and I basically just say, Sauce Gardner has basically reset the market. Period. He's reset the market. This is what it's going to be, and we start to see that this is what costs everywhere. $30 million a year is what the top receivers are getting. Actually, a little bit more than that now. $30 million now. We got the corners that are up to $30 million a year. So if you have a top corner, it's really good. And that's the thing. Matt here makes a good suggestion about TJ Watt. It's similar to the comments I made earlier about it's similar to Cam Heyward's contract where, the last year or two isn't guaranteed or, you can get out of it very easily. But the problem is, Cam Heyward didn't have a ton of guaranteed money up front. TJ Watt wants $125 million guaranteed. And you're going to have to find a way, that would be dead cap money for a year or two if you cut him. Even if it's a non-guaranteed, the base salary is not guaranteed. That signing bonus has to be prorated over the course of the contract or whatever. And so you're going to be faced with a lot of dead money. I think that's part of the problem with TJ Watt's contract. But it is amazing. If you look at what Sauce Gardner is getting now, what's Joey Porter Jr. say? He goes out and he's an all-pro this year. What's he going to ask for next year? Corners cost money. They're starting to cost more money. Receivers are starting to cost more money. Quarterbacks are what they are. I mean, it'd be interesting. What happens if Broderick Jones this year goes out and he's an all-pro at left tackle? Think about what left tackles cost. So the Steelers just have to be careful and mindful of these things because they've got some young guys who, if they went out and had a really good season this year, could actually blow the whole thing up and out. And you want to sign your younger players. That's the other thing. You want to sign your younger players. And I think that's where, the disconnect with TJ Watt and me are. I just wouldn't give him that much money. Wouldn't give him that much money at all. It's just one of those things where you go through it and you basically say, if you're the Steelers, let's talk about finding a way to make this work for us and make it so that we can trade everything from the standpoint of we could trade them, get some draft picks for them, whatever, figure out a way to get it done. And so that's where I would tell you, I just think with this whole thing with TJ Watt, if the sticking point truly is years on the contract, that's different to me than money. Because there's a lot of different ways you can structure the money. There's ways you can structure the contract too, but when the guaranteed portion of this contract is going to be so large, it's really, really hard to do it in a way where you can spread out the money enough to not have, 1 year where you've got a bunch of dead money under the cap and all that other stuff. I mean, was it the Chargers this year that had like $90 million dead money under the cap, something like that? Some ridiculous amount of money that was just dead money under the cap because of some of these contracts they signed with guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was the Chargers. Maybe it was somebody else. I think it might have been the Chargers or the Broncos. Maybe it was actually the Broncos because they had Russell Wilson. They had a bunch of dead money that they had to pay to a bunch of guys, and they somehow still made the playoffs, which kind of shows you if you have good quarterback play, guess what? It covers a multitude of sins. And I think that's really what it comes down to. So we'll see. But again, if it's years for TJ Watt that is the sticking point and not money, I think this could go on for a long, long time. And I think that it could be something that doesn't ultimately ever really get resolved. Okay, so let's move on to your Buccos. First of all, I get a kick out of people who just don't quite understand that. Those of us want the Pirates to be good. Like, I want the Pirates to be good. I want baseball to be alive again. I want the Pirates to be good. So if I critique them or criticize them, it's not because I don't want them to be good. It's not because I want them to be bad and the laughingstock. It's because I want them to do things the right way. The latest thing was Oneil Cruz. Okay, last night he was smacking the ball 500 feet in the home run derby and all that other stuff, and it was kind of somewhat amusing or entertaining to watch him hit a bunch of home runs, right? And everybody was in awe of the StatCast. Look at his long home runs, the StatCast. And I was like, this seems to me to be Oneil Cruz in a nutshell. He wowed the StatCast because he had, 7 of the furthest 8 home runs or something like that. But he didn't win the competition. Didn't even get to the finals. And so, it's kind of one of those things where it's just like all the people that gush over his StatCast numbers and his exit velocities and all the other stuff. Guess what? He's batting 200. He strikes out way too much. His OPS is under 800. I don't give a rat's ass that he hits the ball 110 mile an hour, 150 mile an hour, or 277 mile an hour, or the speed of sound off his bat. I don't care. The reality is, I want to see him develop as a hitter. But to me, it was like in a nutshell. So anyway, I made this point. In a nutshell, this is sort of Oneil Cruz right now, isn't it? He's hitting, he's making the StatCast go crazy. And he doesn't win. This turned into, I'm a hater, I'm an angry person, I'm all this other stuff. I'm not. I just tell it like it is. Just tell it like it is. And I think that's the thing with Oneil Cruz. He's got to develop as a hitter. He's got to hit the ball consistently. And for people that are like, well, you're just being overly critical. You're just doing this. Look at how far he hits the ball. Okay, look at how far he hits the ball. Okay. He right now, let's see where he's at. Mr. StatCast champion right now is tied for 43rd in home runs. 43rd in home runs. Okay? He has 16. Cal Raleigh has 38. Aaron Judge has 35. Ohtani has 32. And a whole bunch of guys are in their 20s. Oneil Cruz is at 16 home runs. Okay, let's go to OPS. Let's see where he ranks in OPS. Oh, wait. We've got to actually scroll down to the second page to see. He's 103 in OPS. 103 at 733. Right behind Gavin Lux, Stephen Kwan, Nick Castellanos. I mean, these are guys that are ahead of him right now. And so my thing is, that's where we're at with it. His slugging percentage. Let's see where that ranks. I mean, he's, not even in the front screen. Got to get to the second screen to go find him in slugging percentage. And guess what? He's 100th. Now, we're sitting here. I'm supposed to slobber all over myself and gush about how great he is at hitting the ball 190 miles an hour off his bat or whatever it is. He's 100th in slugging percentage, 103rd in OPS, tied for 43 in home runs. It's terrible. I mean, I don't care about his StatCast numbers. I don't care how hard he hits the ball. I don't care about his launch angles. Don't care about all that. Don't give a rip. And then a guy last night that was scolding me saying, well, if you look at his numbers off the bat, his percentages and his how hard he hit and all the other stuff and his hit ball, guess what? If you look at all that stuff, then you have to come to the conclusion that he's just very unlucky. Now think about how stupid that sounds. Think about how dumb that sounds. He's just very unlucky. I mean, come on, man. Come on. I don't want to hear that ever. Don't want to hear that ever. So I think that's the key with me is when I look at these things, I am often basically saying these people that are just always going to give excuses for the Pirates and their players, they don't want to live in reality. They just don't. Oneil Cruz might be a really talented guy, but at the end of the day, sorry, it's not translating to big numbers on the field, and that's all we should really, really care about. Interestingly enough, I wrote a column today about the Pirates, about Donnie Kelly, who I think should be the Pirates manager going forward, with this caveat. He's got to earn it in the second half. How can he earn it in the second half? I'll tell you what he needs to do. Okay? He needs to make sure this team doesn't completely fall apart. Needs to make sure this team does not completely fall apart and go into the tank like so many bad teams do late in the season when, there's no hope left. That's what he needs to do. And I'm going to tell you, I think that is probably accurate. I think that's probably accurate from the standpoint of, I don't know how much a manager really matters, but if there's any measurable, tangible way that you can take a look at what has happened with the Pirates and say, well, Donnie Kelly has provided a spark. He's been a guy that's been a sort of a catalyst and all that other stuff. If there's any way you can do that, you have to also measure it a little bit with wins and losses. I don't know what the right number is. But it can't be a situation of where they go in completely into the tank and finish with like 65 wins or something. I mean, he's got to show not that he can overcome, a bad roster, but that he can keep a bad roster engaged and playing hard and competitive and competing every night. That's what he needs to do. And I think that's where probably the disconnect comes with some people because they think, well, it's, not fair because the roster's bad. He should be judged. I agree. He should be judged on a curve. But one of the things about Derek Shelton, that when they were playing, they were sort of listless under him. Donnie Kelly's got to, continue to prove, hey, every night this team comes out and they compete. They give everything they got. We steal some games. We play harder than some teams. We make good decisions with the baseball. We're a team that is playing a much better brand of baseball than we were before I got here, even though it's tough. That's what I would tell you. Even though it's tough, we're going to show up every night and play the right way, and we're going to get a little bit better each and every game. So That's my feeling on it. I want him to be the guy. Trust me. I like Donnie Kelly a lot. I think he's really good. I like that he brings a lot to the table. But I also think it can't just be handed to him because, we like him and because he's from Pittsburgh. We will do it again Thursday. And Thursday we will, as always, ramp it up and get us ready for training camp. Until then, enjoy your night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.